Hi everybody, welcome back to Do Me a Solid. In today's video, we are going to be creating the packing box that I showed but never designed in the How to Design a Cardboard Box tutorial that I did a while ago. So let's just dive right in. Okay, so here is the box from the original video in all of its glory. We're going to go ahead and replicate this in a new part. So let's start by going File, New. I'm using a custom part that I designed. I explained how to do that in another video. I'll link it below. Okay, so first things first, top plane. We're going to go ahead and create the bottom interior dimensions of the box. So whatever you want the interior dimensions of the box to be, this is where we put them. So I'm going to do 10 by 8.5 inches. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to do an extrude thin. So extrude, and then you'll notice here that for some reason the direction is hidden, but I want to do that for 7 inches. Drop that down. Thin feature. We're going to do 100 thousandths, but I want to stress here is that we're going to do it outside of it. So not inside, outside, because we want to maintain the interior dimensions that I mentioned earlier. Go ahead and click OK. Then we have our box. Okay, now that we have our box, what we need to do is convert it to sheet metal. So the first thing we're going to do is go up here to the sheet metal tab, click convert to sheet metal, and then what it's going to ask you for is a fixed face for all of the folds to stem from. So we'll pick any of these outside box features here, or faces here, and then we'll go ahead and click bend edges, and what we're going to do is we're going to go around the box and find the outside edges because they have to be on the same face as the fixed face, and I want to show that I selected the outside one. So we have to go all the way around, click on the outside edges, and as you can see, it's creating the bends for us. They're actually creating the radii bends here, so it's going to be within those bounds. Now what we want to also change here is we do not want that big of a radius, so I'm going to put 10 thousandths, and then I'm going to keep the thickness as 1/8 of an inch here. And we also want to make sure that we keep this open butt joint so that it doesn't close off one of the edges of the box. Go ahead and click the green arrow and hit OK. And as you can see, we have the minimal radii on the box, and then we also have the open-ended butt joint. Now, that radius that I added in there, that cannot be altered after we get out of this command. However, I would recommend finding out from your manufacturer what the minimum radii are required on boxes that you do based on the thickness that they provide. So keep that in mind when designing this. Okay, next thing we're going to do is create the edge flange, which will end up being the stapling flap. So we'll go ahead and click on this edge right here, and if we pull it over here, we're going to go ahead and click anywhere, but we're going to make this 1.25 inches. Okay, now what I want us to pay attention to here is that currently that edge is trying to overlap the model, and that's going to create an error. So we have to go back to the flange position here, and what you want to do is you want to select this first one, which is going to be the material inside, and then with the material inside, it'll avoid hitting this outside edge. Now we can do any of the other positions, but they'll start overlapping. You can also add an offset to make sure that it goes outside, but we want to keep this on the inside of the material because that's where the staples are going to go. So we'll go ahead and click this first one and then hit OK. If you're not happy with how far the distance is between the two flanges here, you can always go back, right click, edit feature, and then you can create an offset here. In this case, I probably wouldn't go more than 20 thousandths just to make sure that there is some distance between this edge flange and the opposite edge flange that it's butting up to. The reason why is because it'll create a self-intersecting part and it'll error out. So trying to do everything to prevent that. So we'll go ahead and keep this edge flange by hitting OK. And then now we can start working on the remaining flanges of the box. Now that we created the flap for the staples, what I'm going to do next is create the other flaps of the box. And how we do that is we're going to create the edge flange. So we'll go to the edge flange command, and then it's going to ask us to choose where we want those flanges. Now, I would design this in the way that I would think to close the box. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the interior flange here, click anywhere for now. We can set that distance later for the length, but we can do this on all four sides. So we'll go ahead and do it on the top. We'll also click the bottom here. We'll create all four at once, and then we'll go ahead and give them a length of 3 inches. That'll be substantial enough to get them across the top, and then once we close the other 2 upcoming flanges, we'll have enough gap inside to still be able to tape it up. But before we proceed, what we're going to notice here is that this is in line with the box. We don't want that. So in this case, we're going to want to come over here to the flange position and hit flange material outside. So you can also hit an offset here just to be safe. I'm going to do an offset of about 20 thousandths just to make sure that we clear this and it doesn't self-intersect and create the problem that we've been trying to avoid with all the flanges. But go ahead and click OK. And now we have the 4 flaps to the box that will be folded into the inside. Okay, so now the last thing that we have to do is create the other 4 flaps that will actually close the box. How we're going to do that, go up to the edge flange command one more time. Again, click on the outside edges. Pull and click anywhere because we're going to have to change that into the flange length anyway. So we'll go ahead and select the edges. 2, 3, and 4. And then what I would do is I would go ahead and pull this until you have a clearance value here. You can determine with your manufacturer how open that has to be, and then you can define that length a little more precisely in the flange length box, but I would find out from the manufacturer how much clearance you need for that box, or you can have it butt up to it by exactly typing in the dimension that you want. So I always recommend having some relief in every part of a box or any part of an object that has a tolerance, just in case a cut goes wrong or in case you're not going to be able to close it properly because whatever's inside of it's going to be too big. So having an allowance is never a bad thing to have on a box. So as with the previous flanges, you'll notice that they are self-intersecting. So these are literally running into the previous flanges. So we're going to go ahead and click the bend outside, and then we're going to increase that offset. So we're going to go to about 150,000, and that 150,000 should keep us above the flange, and it should also give us enough clearance and space to be able to close this box. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then you'll notice that the box is completed. We have all of the flaps, and then along with those flaps, we also have the interior flaps as well. So this is the completed box, but I do also want to show you a troubleshooting tip. Okay, so what to do if the part becomes self-intersecting. We're going to go ahead and go back into this last flange, and we're going to make it so that it does go to the interior and that it hits it. I just want to show what that error looks like. So you'll see that not only does it look incorrect, but you'll see that on the feature itself, it's going to say the part intersects itself after bend operations. Now, this can happen even when you use SolidWorks' regular commands. Like if you go to the edge flange, and then on a blind edge, if you say up to vertex, so like the center point of a line, it'll still do that if it touches the box. So that's why I always suggest adding clearance to all these things just to keep that from happening. I'll hit Control Z to undo, and then we'll be back to a completed box with no errors. Okay, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something from it, then go ahead and like and subscribe. Please feel free to leave a comment with future ideas for videos or any other questions you may have. Thanks for watching, and cheers!